Hi, my friends. I have a great message for you today. And that is that I have my amazing friend, colleague, and superstar, Nick Demos, here with us again on the Make Time for Success podcast. He was with us for the fantastic episode number 97, where we both talked about his origin story, but also the topics of imposter syndrome and how to turn that into creative success. So catch that episode again if you haven't listened to it. And regardless of whether you listen to number 97, I want you to listen to this one because Nick is so many things, so many wonderful parts of life and creativity, and such an amazing man and friend person. He is also, by the way, an award-winning documentary filmmaker, Tony-winning producer, author, podcaster, teacher, mentor, performer, and speaking coach, and just a lovely person to learn from and be with. Nick, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. It's an honor, of course, to always appear on somebody's podcast, but to be invited back is truly amazing, and I don't take it lightly. And I thank you for all that you're doing in the world and for bringing me back, obviously.
Well, it took me half a millisecond to come up with the idea of bringing you back onto the show because I know I'm going to have a lot of fun and I know my listeners are going to enjoy our conversation as well. And you and I are coming together again for a specific reason. I know you've got a lot planned for the fall of 2024. I wanted none of my podcast listeners to miss out on what you're doing and to get inspired by the message that you were about to share with us. And the topic today, ladies and gentlemen, is about becoming a speaker. So, Nick, why don't you just start us off and let us know why we're here right now and what your plans are for this topic of how to become a better, more powerful, impactful speaker going forward.
Yeah, I think the first question is, why would anyone want to become a speaker? It is maybe the most vulnerable thing in the world. It is certainly one of the things that when people say, what are the scariest things to do? Public speaking is on that list for so many folks. And I get that first and foremost. So back up, I was running a regional theater in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, y'all. And I was new. I had just been hired. I was a 29-year-old kid who had just been hired to run a theater. I don't know what they were thinking hiring this young buck, but I was and I was ready. I was really prepared to run the theater in terms of, which sounds strange at 29, but I did know my craft. I had been a professional actor since I was 16. I'd been directing for several years. I understood the aspects of the theater. What I wasn't prepared for was that I had to speak to the audience, that I had to go out and be the face of the theater. And the very first time, there's this old tradition in the theater of the curtain speech. At a regional theater, the producer will come out onto the stage and rile people up and get them ready and talk about the season or talk about what's coming up at the theater. And really, it is to put the face to the theater so that the theater is more than an institution. Has a human component. Well, I was not prepared for that, Christine. Uh, I honestly, despite being an actor, and you would think, well, you were an actor, you could go out and talk. No, that's playing a part. That's not being yourself. I was so uncomfortable with who I was in my skin that I didn't feel like I could really share, that I could really get up there and be myself. I didn't know how to be me on stage. So the first time I had the stagehand roll out a podium. I mean, I was just supposed to step out there and, say a couple words, but I was like, no, 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 I need something to hold on to. I need somewhere to put my notes. I had him roll out a podium and I set my notes down and that spotlight hit my face and I looked down and I couldn't see my notes because the spotlight hit my face.
Oh,
It was too bright to read and I had to wing it. And I held on for dear life, and sweat began pouring down my cheeks. And I'm a fast talker, obviously. I started talking so fast that it was a nail. I was just like, I just have to get through this. That's what I remember thinking. And I took some more deep breaths, kept going, got through it, left the stage, was so relieved that I had finished it. But later on that evening, I was in the hallway after the show, and people were coming, as a sort of a meet and greet afterwards. And this big burly guy comes barreling toward me. And I thought, oh no, here we go. I thought, oh, he's got something terrible to say about the show. Because everyone has an opinion, let me tell you. And which is also something you have to learn when you're on stage, right? Everyone's going to have an opinion.
Oh.
And he comes barreling towards me in his really thick, sort of country accent. He says, "You're Nick, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That thing you said up there about a child being able to project their voice at the back of the theater and how that would change their life, you changed my mind about this theater thing." And in that moment, I knew that I had to get really good at speaking, like really good. If I could have that effect when I was terrible, I knew that if I got really good at it, that I could make major impact. And that was the beginning of speaking for me. And that is why speaking is so important. Because if you can change a mind, you can change a life, you can change just a perspective shift. That's a miracle, right? People will say a shift of perception is a miracle. If you can create that miracle, and if one person at a time, that's how real change happens.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you tell a story. And Nick almost every 10 minutes basically makes me want to cry in a good way. Like either I'm laughing or I'm feeling something or I'm shifting my perspective. So thank you, Nick, for sharing that part of your origin story about how you realized that the ability to speak powerfully can change people, can change events, can change the course of things, and is so important. And what then did you do to become masterful at the craft of speaking? And what can we access
Yeah.
as maybe non-actors, let's say?
Yeah, I've obviously had a big skill set behind me, right? I had years of stagecraft, years of being up there that I could really draw from. So a lot of it for me was breaking that down. And then how do I translate that and transfer those skills to speaking? So a lot of that was organic for me. But I will say this: practice, 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 practice. I started speaking at the Kiwanis Club. I started speaking at the Lions Club. I started going to community events and speaking because the more that you actually speak, the better you get. And I created a structure. So I created what I call the impact talk, where I really began to dive into how to structure a talk so that it has the most impact. And like you said, it's through these stories and sharing stories and finding stories that are relatable, that you can but that also connect to your bigger message. And when I did that, that's really when it sort of upped its game, so to speak. Additionally, as you well know, I began to share my personal story uh, in various forms, not only on stages from as I speaking to 10 people, speaking to 1,000 people. I've done the whole gamut of that, but also on film. And truly, I want to say this: start where you are. Start where you are. Yeah, you're likely not going to speak in front of 1,000 people first go around, right? even stepping onto a social stage. There's many stages. This is actually what I want to say. There's many stages. There's there's social media is a stage. That's your stage. Podcast, we're on a stage right now. This is a stage. This is a speaking gig. This is a speaking engagement. Maybe it's an organization. Maybe it's corporate. Maybe it's an association. There are so many stages. And really, how you convey who you are and who you're being and the story that you share, that's what gets you remembered. That's what gets you asked back. Thank you very much. That's what takes you to that next level of impact, ultimately. So start small. Find a structure that works for you, whether that's the one that I created and I can help you do that, or finding it on your own. Either way, there's no one way. Let me be very clear about this. I have a way that works for me and that I know works for others because I've worked with people and it works for them, but there is no one way to tell a story. The structure is structure, right? And get out there and do it. Practice, 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 practice.
Okay. I am finding myself experiencing a little PTSD for you based on the spotlight covering your sheet of paper, because it's that experience of wanting to be and feel prepared and
Yeah.
yet having life say, oh, yeah, no, this is all one big hilarious joke because you have to be tested in some way. So, how do people get over that anticipatory fear? Because you can give them structure all day long, but that fear might still be raging, and maybe even on a subconscious level where things, with all the practice, we might still have some spotlight issue come in there.
Yeah. What we're really talking about here is vulnerability. Being susceptible to attack is what vulnerable means. And it's interesting, Christine, because I work with people every day about this, about stepping into themselves. Because again, it's actually not about what's out there, it's about what's in here. It's about the internal message that you're telling yourself and sending yourself. Yes, has it been influenced by outside? Absolutely. What you were told at 8 is what you're telling yourself now. What that first experience of speaking your truth, of using the throat chakra, that you're using that part of yourself and expressing it, and what you received from that can hold you back. That could be the block. So the first thing you have to do is know thyself. Really diving into the stories. Speaking of story, we deal with, when you're sharing your external stories, it requires you to look at your internal stories. And so it's not necessarily for the faint of heart in that sense, right? When you agree to step up onto a stage and share yourself, it requires that you look inside. It requires that you ask yourself the big questions. And shift things energetically, emotionally, so that you can be of service. You'll often hear people say, "Don't make it about you." And I've even said this in the past. I say this: "Don't make it about you. It's about your audience." Okay, but how? Right? How do I do that? How do I make that shift? How do I go to that? And that really is doing some inner work. That all the stuff that you do, Christine,
Mm.
is great prep for somebody who wants to step out onto a stage.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more you share of yourself, the more that begins to dissipate. It's really, I know that sounds so strange because you think, well, but then how do I get that first step? How do I take that first step to it? And really, it's simply doing it and then doing the inner work and doing it and doing the inner work. And it's this game that you almost have to play with yourself to allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I am going to capture all those people who consider themselves faint of heart because I'm going to share a message that even the faint of heart can really do this, because you can do the inner work as well. And you can use your history of vulnerability, or maybe even extreme vulnerability, as a source of a story, or a source of a way to connect to people in the audience, in your audience, who might be experiencing the exact same thing that you've been experiencing, right? And um, I think I just wanted to make sure those people didn't get left
Oh,
behind.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what I do, and that's a definitely an expression, the faint of heart. I didn't mean that you can't do it or anybody can't do it. Everyone can do this work. There's no question about it. And yes, this is what you're talking when we're saying like make it about the other first if you need to, so that you can then feel like there's a reason. There's always a reason for telling your story. The first thing you want to start with is why. Why do you want to speak on stage? Why do you want to share your story? Because if you remember that why, then other things begin to fall away, because that's more important. You may be the type of person who's like, I am the faint of heart, like you said, like I'm not sure about this inner work. This is a lot. But if I say to you, but that message that you have that's on your heart that you know you want to share with people, if it can get to more people, wouldn't you want to do that? Oh, well, yeah, I want my message to resonate with more people. Yeah, I want people to make this change, this action, do whatever it is that I offer. And then if I say, great, let's get you on stage to do that, and you say, uh-oh, I'm not so sure, that right there is the story. There's a story right there to share, that just by expressing I'm uncomfortable here, because I think this is another fallacy too, Christine, that people think that you have to have it all together in order to be up on stage. Oh, look at them. They're so together. No. And in fact, I would say that the more vulnerable you are on stage with the fact that you're not all together, the more people are actually drawn to you. When you see somebody who's too polished on stage nowadays, we go, this is fakery. Because we know it is. Nobody's got it all together. Nobody. And so consequently, if you can actually use that vulnerability, like you were saying, and express it on a stage, I can't tell you the number of times I've been like, oh, I just messed that up. And people laugh, right? Because of course everyone's messed up. Or let me say that again, because that doesn't really work. That's vulnerability.
Yeah, you're making me think about where the the very common fear of speaking comes from. It may be that pressure to appear not as you really are, as some sort of performer, perfect person, and flawless communicator, which is a lot. That's a big ask for anyone, even professionals, I would imagine. But I love that you weave in stories as kind of places to rest and places to rely on getting your message through to people and connecting and making things flow, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and because we learn through story.
Yeah.
Story is actually how we process information. If you throw a bunch of statistics, which are really hard to memorize, to be perfectly honest, and really difficult and are dry and aren't that interesting, and you can throw all that. I can say to you a statistic like you're more likely to remember 22 times more likely to remember a fact if it has a story attached to it. Great, that's an interesting statistic, but that's not that compelling
Mhm.
as me telling the story of Maria, who stood up on stage and delivered with such great compassion and emotion a story.
Yeah.
Right, you're going to remember Maria's story and the compassion she had more than a statistic about 22 times.
Yeah. That's a great example. Great story. Great share. Okay, terrific. So now could you explain to us the origin of this phase of your work and
Yeah.
why you're deciding to put your creative energy behind this topic and this work?
I obviously have been a storyteller forever, as you well know, and I had been speaking for quite some time as a professional. And I made the decision that I was going to go sort of all in on professional speaking, go much deeper in. And I joined the National Speakers Association and I was like really like in it, right? In it to win it. And what happened was people kept saying to me, "Hey Nick, can you help me with my story? Hey Nick, your talk is structured really well. Can you help me with that?" And this light bulb went off. Oh, I'm not the quarterback. I'm the coach. I'm not the star speaker. I'm the one that helps people become star speakers. And that makes so much sense now, Christine, in retrospect. Of course. I'm the producer, I'm a director. I mean, it's like all of these years of all the stuff that I've done coming into one beautiful package. I mean, directing actors is directing performance. Writing, I've been a writer. That's the structure of the story. The producing, that's like creating a show. The more I sat with that, I was like, could somebody hit me like with a hammer harder? Okay, like what's that saying? Like one brick comes and then and you don't pay attention, and the next brick, and then the whole entire house is falling down on your head of bricks. That's sort of how this came about. It was not like I set out being like, I'm going to be. It just truly happened in this super organic way. And when that happened, I made the decision, okay, I'm going to create a course. I'm going to create a program ultimately about creating your talk that will have massive impact in the world, because that's really what I'm all about, as you will know, is impact. Yes, income. It's going to create income too, but I named my program the Impact Academy, not the Income Academy. The income is the byproduct. This is what happens when you create that impact. But it was really important to me that I draw in like-minded, heart-centered, amazing folks who really are out there wanting to make change in the world through these talks. And then I had this, realization also that I'm a live guy. Like, I'm a theater person first and foremost, always and forever. I that sound like cats, now and forever. I am I'm a theater person. I'm a live person. I thought I have to create some live events, because if you're gonna speak on stage, you need to be on stage. And that stage, again, doesn't need to be a huge amphitheater. A stage can be standing up in front of 5 people and giving a talk in a classroom. There are so many ways, but I knew people needed to do it on their feet and they needed to do it live. And so, yeah, I created the Impact Academy live. We're doing a live event in New York City, New York, New York. Can I sing on this podcast?
Yes, of course. Please. Um, and once I heard about what Nick was up to, I didn't hear about the quarterback. I'm not the quarterback, I'm the coach realization piece, but I'm really glad you shared that here and I'm glad I know it now. But once I heard that Nick was doing this kind of event live in my town of New York, I that's how he got back on the show, because I knew I wanted to help him promote this. I wanted to support him. I wanted you all to know that this kind of opportunity was available to you soon. And do you want to share the dates of the Impact Academy first? And then we can share what else you have for our listeners.
Yeah. So, first of all, before I share those dates, I want to say thank you, because you were the very first person to raise your hand and
Oh,
say, I want to help you.
yeah.
And I that means so much to me. I'm kind of getting a little weepy here. It means so much to me. It really touched my heart that you were so giving and sharing. And I'm not sure your audience knows. I'm sure they do. They must from listening. What a big, huge heart you have. But
As both my dogs chime in and agree.
like, yes, 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 yes. So I want to say thank you for that. But
Oh, thank you.
the dates for New York are October 26th and 27th, 2024. Uh, in New York City, it truly is, it's a weekend of creating your signature talk and getting part of it up on its feet and getting feedback on your presentation, which is so valuable and so important to have that feedback before you get in front of an audience. Don't do what I did. Don't do what I did. Learn from my mistake. Get feedback first.
Yeah, we want to skip all the PTSD and all
Yes.
the lights interfering with your beautiful story and the impact that you were meant to have. And I know he's got a lot planned for the live weekend, including a lot of hands-on crafting and support and a non-pressured environment. I went through this landing page very carefully myself. So I know that those are pieces that are
Yeah.
included.
I think one of the things that's most important to me is that you're having a good time while you're doing it, that it's fun.
Yeah.
Because stage is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be scary. And in fact, when you flip that, when you get to the fun part, it's like the best feeling and experience in the world, because you know that yes, you've done all this work, you've done all the inner work that we were talking about. This hard, it's hard, it's hard, it's vulnerable. But when you get past that and into the actual presentation and you're making a difference in the world, it's like the best feeling ever. And that is fun. And so I want the process to be as fun as possible,
Yeah.
as joyous as possible.
Yes, and I'm a big supporter of anything that Nick does being super fun. I can vouch for all of all of the fun factor that Nick will bring. So, thank you for sharing the Impact Academy dates with us and what's included. Let's talk about what you have planned for August. We have a date of August 22nd. I'll let you carry it away.
Yeah. So on August 22nd, I have a workshop, which, because you're listening to this, you get to come for free. It is a paid workshop, but because you are listening to this, because of Christine being such a big supporter and friend, there is an option for you all to come join us for free. It's an outline your signature talk workshop. It's like the first step that you want to take, choosing your topic, making sure that you've got a topic that is going to be resonant, that's going to match the message that you want to share, and beginning to create that message by creating an outline of your talk. That then, of course, if you come in October, you can begin to really fill that in. It's a great precursor. That said, even if you just come for the workshop, you'll get great value out of it, because you'll have this structure that you'll be able to then go take and fill out on your own. And if you can't come on the 22nd of August, you can still come to the October event as well, because we go back and we really dive in. But it's a great precursor, a little, but like a taster. You get to come have a little taste of the fun, and walk away with your outline, an outline for a keynote talk.
I love this. I love this. So again, outline your signature talk will be a virtual live
Virtual.
experience on August 22nd, and it is free for Make Time for Success podcast listeners. And I'm going to give you a link to get information about that and or sign up for that. It's maketimeforsuccesspodcast.com/talk, which is TALK. Again, it's maketimeforsuccesspodcast.com/talk. I do want to just put in an extra plug for this kind of work in general. Any work that helps you to become more confident, to become more of a communicator, to become more comfortable with what you have to say is going to be so worth your time, your energy, your attention, your resources, it just will pay you back over and over and over again. Because from that point forward, you'll have that much more to give and show up with and to be with. It's just amazing.
Yeah, one of the things that it does is it really clarifies your message. No matter, even if you're not going to step onto a stage, but you already are. I already know you are, because we're all on stages now. How are we not when we're on social? How are we not? It's a stage. You've got your own stage, right? But what this does really is clarifies who you are and how you want to be in the world. And that's priceless. Ultimately, that's everything.
It's everything. And I think that brings us to the end of this beautiful episode. Thank you for bringing the love, as always. Thanks for always bringing the fun and almost the tears all the time. And I just love you so much. Thank you, Nick. Please let us know your Instagram handle as well, so that if people want to hang out with you on social, see you there, maybe message you there as well, we can have them do that as well.
Yeah, maybe we'll create a reel together, you and I, again.
Right.
Okay, the Nick Demas, TheNickDemos, the Nick Demas.
All right, terrific. Any final words from you, Nick?
I think the final thought really is allow yourself the vulnerable heart. Allow yourself to have a great time in the process of sharing who you are. And you can do it. You can do this.
All right, everyone. That is a wrap. I love you too. And I will see you next week on Thursday when the next episode of this podcast drops. Take care.